you might think he's flat out unfair. Like, it is what he can do sometimes is just like, So he's a character of heavy extremes because he's either winning or losing in some spectacular fashion whenever you see him. Maybe the worst character in the game in Season 1, she bounced back extremely hard in Season 2 and has fluctuated near the higher end of the rankings ever since.
All right, so I have him 20 spots higher. I think that's our biggest discrepancy thus far.
Yep. I hate the way he's designed. I can't really fault the players for playing him. It's just like Capcom did a really foolish job with him, and I'm not the only player who said that over the years. All right. Hey guys, we're really trying to do some new things with the YouTube channel. And so if you can leave a thumbs up for us, a like here on YouTube, even if you're listening to us on the audio version on our podcast, a lot of people do that still. Shout outs to all you guys and gals and they, thems out there. But leaving a like helps our channel a ton. So, take a second or two if you don't mind doing that and like these videos. It's super appreciated and lets us do it more.
Yep. So we're doing our Street Fighter 5 tier list. We are half done. Jumping into the top half of the tier list today, we've done our first video was the bottom 11 characters, and we both have our own respective lists that we have not shared with one another. So we did that video, and then we did the what I call the lower 11. Now we are in the upper 11, and then the next video will be the top 11. So if you haven't seen bottom 11 and lower 11, you might want to go check out at least the results of those, and then we will jump in here to the upper 11. Number 22 on your list. Who you got, John?
I had Ed. We hit him before, but who do you have?
We talked about him. I had Abigail. This character's all over the place. People still regard him as really good. Some are like he's a top 10. Some are like, he's so easily countered and slow and thwarted. And I'm more on that side. Like I've got to give some credence to the idea, to the fact that higher level players have a high opinion of him. Itabashi Zangief sticks with them. You see him pop up still relatively frequently, and he's capable of some stuff. Like, he can dole out that damage. He can put you in some pretty gnarly situations. But he also, he's kind of predictable. He's kind of slow, and he's a huge target. So I have him here in the top half, but only barely.
Yeah, I've got him at 19th as well, so very close on our listings. And this is one where there's like one or two players who really skew this guy higher on my list, and that's it. Blarlad, and then, of course, Itabashi Zangief, who you've mentioned. There's a few others out there as well. He's not an easy character to play, and he's fairly rare due to his bad matchups. However, when you see Abigail in the hands of, these players we're talking about, you might think he's flat out unfair. Like, it is what he can do sometimes is just like, So he's a character of heavy extremes because he's either winning or losing in some spectacular fashion whenever you see him. His defense, when you get him on his back, tends to be abysmal, and it could be even worse if you decide to use his tire, because that removes his parry V skill, which is one of his best defensive tools. But, it's trading offense for defense, which is, that's why you pick Abigail, right? So when he gets going, this is maybe the most difficult character in the entire game to stop. Depending on who you're playing, this guy can just steamroll you like nobody's business. And a patient Abigail who picks his spots is a nightmare for the opposition. And that's why he made it into my top 20.
Yep, me too. 21, who you got?
21, I had Ryu.
Okay, and we spoke about Ryu already. I had your former main, Menat. Is she in this grouping for you?
She's much higher for me.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You want to save her and talk about her later?
I much higher is 14th for me. Let's go ahead and get her now.
So she's in this group. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she's in this group. Yeah.
So Menat is one of those characters that she's still good. She can still play her game, and she sets the pace. And when you do that, when you can successfully set the pace as a zoner, you're really good. That's like what I feel like Sagat, for instance, or Falk can't do. And but Menat can, and she's still got some crazy stuff with her V triggers. They're not game breaking, and they're hard. Especially her V trigger one to use. So she's got some clear bad matchups. She's also got some clear really good matchups. And she was one of those figures that, especially with V-Shift, we thought, she's going to be one of the matter-of-fact best in the game because she'll be able to escape. And if you can't lock Menat down, you are done. It doesn't seem that things have come to fruition in quite that way. So, and it's like, I respect her as a character for sure, and she can be very frustrating. But this feels like a fine spot to put her. The characters that are above her for a reason.
Yeah, on usage alone, I don't think you have any problem with Menat because I've got her at 14th, a good bit higher, but she's not that popular and she's so incredibly hard to play, hands down the most difficult character to play in the game, and I don't even think there's a close second to her. It is like there's Menat and then take a couple steps down and then there's Rose, Oro, all those other characters and whatnot. And it's funny because Menat got next to nothing in the way of buffs. She actually got a few minor nerfs, but she jumped up several spots on many people's tier list because everyone else got worse around her. And then of course she's someone who's a zoner typically, and she's got V shift now. Anytime you give an extra major tool to a zoner and just make them that much better, it's one more layer that she does not have to succumb to when you finally get in on her. And that's where Menat falls apart, is when you get in on her, she's got one more escape option, and it's like, damn, that's really good. So, if you manage to play her at that level, if you can manage, to tap into her potential, which is like 3 people on the planet, you've got one of the better characters in the entire game. And as you mentioned, there's some matchups that really favor her. There's some stuff against her, but she's no longer, she was never free wins, but she definitely was better. She was probably a top 7 character previously, and it's just, it's her some of her bad matchups like Bison and Balrog and other stuff, they basically mean that you have to have an alternative character to play her, and it's just, yeah, so it's Menat's really good, and I've seen a few people place her in like the top 10, even top 5 now. I don't have her that far up just because, again, some of her matchups are great, some of them are not so great, and when you have the most technical character in the game and you have to keep an alt to really make her work, it's a little bit of a hard sell for, maybe a big time hard sell for a lot of people.
Yeah. Do we hit your 21 already?
21 is Ryu, yes.
Okay, so number 20, who you got?
I have got your new main, Akira.
Oh, she's right next to this for me at 19, but let me, number 20 for me was Honda, and I know that he was way lower for you. Where did you have him?
I had him 40th.
All right, so I have him 20 spots higher. I think that's our biggest discrepancy thus far.
Yep.
And so that's interesting. Well, we didn't talk about him before. I want to talk about him now. Honda is he's simple, but he can be kind of goofy and weird. He's got a ton of just do it moves. And a lot of the times with just do it moves, especially if they're not like V-trigger related, which he has some in V-trigger, some in outside of V-trigger, and I think the bulk of them are outside of V-trigger with his butt slams, with his headbutts. He's super solid and can at any moment go crazy with these just do it moves. And it's like, well, okay, but lab them is usually the answer for those kind of scenarios, and then the character falls off a little bit. With Honda, it's like labbing it. It's like the way that butt slam falls, and then he like hops in one direction or another to complete the animation. A lot of times, even though it's as negative as it is, it ends up being safe or out of reach for a lot of characters. His
neg 2,
movements,
so it's usually safe. His butt slam's neg 2, unless it crosses up, maybe it's like neg 5, I think. So
So, but like trying to take your advantage, for instance, or trying to like approach him, he's a tank. Like he has his anti-air headbutt, but he also has the Swiss Army knife of heavy punch. And then like him putting pressure on you is extremely strong. He can rush you down, he can sit and wait, and he can thrive off of gimmicks that I don't think have diminishing returns. I think his stuff that he just throws at you is a legitimate way of playing him. And so he's got all of these different gears, which means he's had all of these different approaches to playing and covering different kinds of matchups. I mean, Honda's always a character that has bad matchups just kind of built into who he is. And sure, I think that's what kind of holds him back from being even higher on the list for me. But the stuff that he can get away with, and seemingly, it's like what should be a gimmick is actually kind of just a thing for him in a lot of scenarios. I think he's really good. I think and he can dole out damage like crazy. Honda is a lot of people's like worst nightmares. But what did you have to say about him? Because I know you don't feel that way.
Yeah, one of the things I do
The
really heavily
Menat and
concede.
Rose player, by the way.
That definitely probably factors into it, yeah. But his KO power, as you said, is among the very best in the game. When Honda hits you, like he can do what, like 60-70% damage when he strings everything together. That is ridiculous. But he has to work super hard to get in those situations for the most part, because you got to have a lot of resources, right? And
What do
right
you
now,
mean?
well, okay, so for example, if you're sitting there just doing, butt slams and other things, and his headbutt's negative in a lot of scenarios, he can't just sit back and do that stuff all day long if your opponent knows how to counter it and is in the spots to just blow it up. Like, I know the ranges where I can just usually cleanly anti-air Honda. And if he does something dumb like his butt slam, is like, even if I trade with it, Honda lacks a 3-frame normal. So I'm going right in afterwards. And, as I said, his butt slam is a -2 normally and the -5, I think. If he crosses up with it, it's just like, okay, go ahead and butt slam, because now all I have to do is just walk forward and blow you up for it. So I really think Honda is one of the biggest scrub killers around. If you look at the CPT stats, he's a big time winner at low levels of play. But as you rank up further, less and less people fall prey to his tactics. And I think that, I mean, I spent like an hour or two in training mode. I maybe didn't have to do because I play Rosa Menat, as you said. And it's his tournament representation is not great. It's like I don't see this guy having a lot of juice once you really hit him. And there's a handful of players, like 3 or 4 players, who are using this guy in tournament and doing anything with them. And almost everyone else like that's using him is just not getting anywhere. So I think he's really one of the worst characters in the game, but it's also with the caveat of you do have to spend a couple hours in training mode to probably figure him out. And there's probably a few matchups where, like even those few hours of training mode aren't going to do, enough. So
I'm interested because he does seem to be popping on different parts of a lot of different tier lists. So if you have an opinion on Honda, if it's anywhere in between, maybe closer to where I put him here at the number 20 or number 40 where John put him, let us know where you put him and who you agree with more, or what you think about the character, because he is kind of an anomaly in this way, and maybe I totally leave the door open for the fact that maybe I'm just kind of getting killed by the scrub killer and what that would imply.
it
But
also might be a bad matchup for you too.
that's the
Stubby
other thing I was
characters,
going to
I
say.
imagine.
I've
Yeah,
played Nikali and I've played Akira, and fighting against a character that can control the neutral so well and that you also can't jump against, that can be frustrating. And
yeah.
so, and again, you play Menat and Rose against this character, so life is most certainly going to be different. All that said, though, I think we can think beyond just how our matchups go, and
Right.
but I am interested to see what other people have to say on. So you had Akira there. I had her at number 19. Let's talk about Akira. What do you think about her?
One of the most recently added characters to Street Fighter V, and already proven to hold up well at high levels of play. Numerous pros are using her. She's a pretty good character all around, with big damage and nice mix-ups, and mainly having to rely on footsies and reads to get her wins. It's like, oh, hey, this is a traditional rush-down character who's designed well and is thoughtful. As you've pointed out, several times now, she's stubby, but that can be offset fairly well by her forward-reaching normals and some of her specials. It's like, okay, she has a way around her stubbiness. It is a calculated weakness that Capcom put in, but they're also like, here's how you get around it. And it's like, oh crap, like you actually put a lot of thought into this character and made her good, and like have defined weaknesses and defined strengths. And it's like, so overall, like it's a character who you can zone her out, which is pretty awesome, but she has some ways of getting around it. And it's like, even her air fireball and other stuff, just to change her trajectory, it's pretty cool. So, but again, you main her, so I'll turn it right back over to you.
I like that she has options in neutral. And yes, of course, stubby, but buttons to offset that so you can play with that. It's like, yes, it's a weakness, but it's a weakness you can do something about, even if it's maybe you're at disadvantage, but you have something. And that's really nice. And then her walk speed makes up for a lot of that. So you can play the footsie game with this character, and it's very rewarding and fun to do, which I think is why you're seeing people, kind of flock to her. Her V trigger 1, you don't see a lot with her V trigger 2. You saw it at the beginning, and it's kind of like a combo extender, or it's something where you can kind of activate and see if the hit worked. Fine, but so is V trigger 1. But V trigger 1 gives you such a good mix up with the Daigo assist. It's similar to what we saw with with Armika, especially in the earlier days. And that's a really strong V trigger. And if she hits you with that mix up and she has super, she's like right on the robbery character kind of border. She can do
Yeah.
500 or more damage in certain scenarios, and they're not that difficult to come by, especially late game. So that's a huge thing too. She's somewhat limited when I compare her to other footsie characters. I think there are others who do it better, but she is very viable. She's fun to play. She's got clear weaknesses that you can exploit, but like I said, she has answers to them. So I think she's a really well designed character, especially for having a slightly different kind of gimmick mechanic thing with the launch and the air combos. Those are actually somewhat hard to do in that there's so many different versions and like heights and like what each move that she does in the air. I mean, we don't need to get into an analysis of the character. There's a little bit of technicality in her, which is nice. It's not just a whole bunch of easy stuff
Yeah.
to do. But yeah, I think she can hold her own against most characters in the game, including like Menat, which is a character that a lot of footsie characters have problems with. So yeah, not the best, but she's definitely worth playing. She's definitely viable and in the top half.
This is how you do a DLC character. Akira is a exact example of it. So
Yeah. All right. So next up on the list, do we do your 19?
you
Who
did
do you have at
19 with me is Abigail. So
Okay, 18. Who do you got?
I've got Sakura. Do you have Sakura
I have
here or
her
somewhere?
I have her a little bit higher, but still in this grouping. I have her at 13.
Okay. 13, gotcha. When it comes to rushdown tools, Sakura seemingly got everything from Capcom. Not just not in the heavy doses some of the other higher ranked cast members got. She's strong and she can end you really fast if you don't know her frame traps and setups. Heck, she can end you really freaking fast even if you know her setups and her frame traps. High damage, high pressure, long combos. She always seems to push her opponent to the corner where you do not want to be. Now Man was a player who originally shined the brightest with Sakura, but these days you're seeing other high-end players get great results too with her, like Chris CCH, Kasanagi, and then Menat RD. Like there's a bunch of not a ton of people playing Sakura, but a bunch more people who are now playing her, and I think that's really good evidence of how much better she is now than she's been in past years.
Do you feel like she's honest? I think she's pretty honest. Like, so she's in that way, she's somewhat similar to Ryu, obviously being a Shoto and having a lot of similar kinds of attacks, you know. But when she gets the hit, she's like taking you to the corner, and then she's able to really pounce. I think she has some of the benefits of Ryu and some of the benefits of Ken rolled into one. And she's not like a throw things at the wall and see if it sticks. She can play solid, but her rewards for playing that way and then successfully getting the hit are relatively high. And so I don't think she's a free wins kind of character. I think you got to put the time into it and you got to have the skill. But when you do, we've seen her win EVA Japan. Now that was a few seasons ago. And she's got a lot of respect from the higher tier players. So yeah, she's kind of just outside of my top bracket here at number 13 for me. But I mean she's got a little wiggle room here in the upper 11. So I don't heavily disagree with where you've got her either.
Yeah, you asked if I think she's honest. She's honest for Street Fighter 5 and how this game plays and what it is. She mostly earns what she does. You know, so she's definitely got robbery, but like so does every character in this game, pretty much. So yeah.
Support for the EventHubs podcast is brought to you by Manscaped today, which offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped has just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, and we have an exclusive offer for you today. If you go to manscaped.com, you will get 20% off and free shipping and handling if you use the checkout code EHubsPod when you check out. 20% off, free shipping and handling, and it lets them know that we sent you, and that's a really important part of the process.
Yeah. Manscaped was actually kind enough to send us both the perfect package 4.0, which includes not only the Lawnmower 4.0, but also the Crop Preserver, which is an anti-chafing ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver, which is a ball spray toner. Both of these do wonders below the belt, leaving you feeling comfortable and looking confident. We need to look confident, John, and also smell like you care. And you know what, John? I tried this out with a wife last night, and she liked it.
Ooh.
So if you're trying to please the ladies, this worked on my lovely wife.
We know that the FGC doesn't exactly have the best resume, the best track record, the best perception, let's say, when it comes to hygiene. Well, fair enough. Let's start today. We have an opportunity. We can take a high quality product, and I've been using it. I've been using all of these. I deem them high quality. John, are they high quality?
No, they're great. They're
Absolutely.
Definitely great.
20% off, free shipping and handling, and we can begin dismantling a stereotype with the Lawnmower 4.0 and its accompanying ball products. One of the things I wanted to point out about the Lawnmower is it has a ceramic blade, which means less snags, less catching, less cuts, stuff like that. And when you're trimming your balls, that's like one of the most important parts about it. It also has a 4000K LED light, so you can see exactly what you're doing no matter how deep and dark you've allowed your pube pores to grow.
That light is amazing. It is so nice to have. I never knew I needed it until I tried this, and now I'm like, I'm never using anything else without that light on there because it's a ball saver. Also, Manscaped's going to take really good care of our audience out there because they can get 20% off.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, hey, it's a good deal. Just use that code EHubsPod at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Again, just punch in that code EHubsPod, unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Balls. All right, number 18. Who you think?
I got Sakura there.
I have Chun-Li.
All right. Ooh.
Chun-Li was a candidate for one of the best, especially at the beginning of the season when she's got great walk speed, she's got great reach. They turned her into a footsie character that when she gets a hit into heavy lightning legs, there was a knockdown for Oki. I was like, that's a recipe for like not necessarily the best in the game, but that's something that could take a character to being the best in the game. A few other variables need to be defined beyond that, but that's a huge tool. I think they took that away from her. She's still Chun-Li. Chun-Li's almost always good, if not really good, in her appearances because of her natural reach, walk speed abilities, and she's got some pretty decent damage. Not a ton in the way of gimmicks. Some V-trigger stuff there that she'll get, but like not the best. I think she's a really solid character, and you can mine the efficiency out of her. Like if you're a skilled player, you put in the time, you can get some pretty high heights with Chun-Li, but you get to that level and it's like, well, maybe she's one of those sufferers of, but why not someone who's better at doing those things than she is, that gets more benefit, that don't have to work as hard. I think Chun-Li has to kind of balance like things like what anti-air is she going to use, and if she gets hit, she doesn't have like, you know, the most life and things like that. So pretty solid all around, some really great tools. It's just that once you kind of get past her, in at least in my tier list here, you're getting into the characters that have goofy stuff, goofy advantages,
yes.
And she just lacks goofy advantages. Maybe that's how I'd put it.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment. I've got her at 15th, so pretty close to where you have her. She's been probably overrated by us and others in the past because her tournament results haven't really justified her being as far up as we've seen her ever since season 1. You know, like season 1, yeah, maybe the best character in the game, somewhere around there, right? But, you know, she's gotten those buffs you've talked about, and people have just immediately shot her up into the top 10 or top 5. The tournament results are not there for her, but as you said, strong across the board. She's got a nice mix of rush down and zoning, and Chun-Li's tool set, in my opinion, it's a worst case, like it's pretty much like a B+ across the board. Like it's like, okay, she has a tool for everything, and it's nice. So you end up with Chun-Li, you end up typically having to outplay her to win, and it's like, okay, that's pretty cool, you know, like I that's what Chun-Li kind of should be. Yeah, and her V-trigger
She's
too.
also a punish monster, by the way. Like a lot of characters that get away with like, oh, I'm minus 5, but you're too far. It's like, not with these lightning legs, you're not.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty nice actually. Well, not so nice when that happens to you, but for Chun-Li players, definitely nice. But a V-trigger 2 also gives her some really good like pressure and other stuff, but that's also now been offset a bit by V-shift. So what Chun-Li lost and gained ended up pretty well in the aggregate, I would say. But the nice part about her, she doesn't need to resort to any one strategy to win. She can basically adjust on the fly based on whatever the opponent is doing, or kind of like how you feel you want to play.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so who did you have at number 17?
I had G. Where do you have G at?
16.
Really close. So I hope you like robbery, dog, because G is ripping victory from the jaws of defeat ever since he was released, even here in 2021. Pretty much the ultimate can't count him out character, even though Capcom has, you know, toned him down. Thank goodness they did that. But he can still do a single mix-up after a really long combo and just end you. And that is what G is. But because his strengths are not as good as they once were, his weaknesses, in my opinion, are a little bit more pronounced now. Because you can get G on his back, and you know he loses the presidentiality and all that kind of stuff, which means his V-trigger is worse. He does not have a 3-frame normal. You can basically force G players to play footsies and zone a bit more. Not a lot. They're not going to do it for large portions of the matchup, but they have to do more stuff now. And so that's kind of where I see the character. But what do you think of G?
He's he's like a kind of belowish average character when it comes to neutral and such. He can do some stuff. His defensive like jab can lead into some stuff, but it's like with him, all roads lead to V trigger, and he's got one of the absolute best in the game. He's hey, he's a beloved character. Like he's a successful character when it comes to like a new edition DLC to the franchise, and I think he'll pop up again in the future. People like him, and despite him being a very frustrating character to lose to, Capcom did tone him down, and I think he used to be one of the top five for free because of his V trigger. Now he's lost enough stuff where he's still depending on his V trigger, but that puts him in the top. What are we at? 16, 15, 16. So he's good. You can't count him out like you said, but he just he's too concentrated. He's got that one big awesome trick, and if you can navigate around that or deal with it, plus V shift comes in to get you out of some of those scenarios where you had
Hmm.
to hold a mix up and you don't have to hold it anymore. I think that all equation adds up to hey, he's in the 16th. So
Gotcha. Yeah, with Street Fighter 6 coming up, as you mentioned, I think we're going to see, G be a very big part of that game too. So you need to get used to his bearded face. But John, we all know you can't trust people with beards. So
yes.
who do you have up next, John? I'm very curious.
Number 15 for me is Zeku. This
Mm.
character, I've played a handful of Zekus. I'm not afraid of him. I respect them good enough. This placement is more based on how much respect he gets at the top level of play from the top tier
Hmm.
players. Like I respect that there's some juice in Zeku that I myself haven't experienced, but watching like the birds play him on a like Street Fighter League, and of course we've seen what Infectious is able to do with him. And then even on the level of someone like Hawaiian Shirtman, who's decent, like he's up in
Hmm.
there in the higher ranks of online, but certainly removed from the players that I just said. And he's got some cool stuff with him. I think he's super versatile, obviously because he's two different characters in one. I like the updates that they made to his V skills. That those are kind of neat, where he has his bird pal and his animal friends assist him with explosives usually.
Hmm.
So I think he's got an answer for almost everything. I think he's got great rush down. I think he's got okay zoning. And so if you're able to put all of the time in to figure out all of the different gears that you'll need to know how to play and to switch into and out of to do this character at a high level, then he's got some really good potential, maybe even higher than I have him here. I think that people would probably place him higher than this, generally speaking. But from what I've seen, I think the other characters that I have above him are above him for a reason, and I can probably articulate why all of them. I can articulate why all of them are higher from my experiences. But that's
Yeah.
where I have Zeku. Where do you have him?
Well, I see now how you got Lucia in your top 10 because I've got Zeku at seventh right now. I'm guessing you have Lucia in your top 10. I'm assuming based on your past statements that you got her up there, but it's I think Zeku is one of the best characters in the game. He was regarded as a very highly technical character, and I guess he still is if you play him in a certain style. But a lot of players got a ton of mileage just by instantly switching over to young Zeku and pounding the hell out of that medium punch button because
Mm.
why not, right? But Capcom nerfed a ton of those things down, which is great to see. So a number of the bandwagon Zeku players hopped off, and they basically were getting easy wins. But there's a number of people who stuck with them, and if you can master switching back and forth between his forms, uh, you can get a lot done with them. And in my opinion, you'll find one of the best overall characters in the game here, with a full tool set to deal with pretty much every situation out there, and not only deal with it really well, deal with it at a very high clip. So
Mm.
that's assuming, of course, you don't get caught in the wrong stance. If you get caught in the wrong stance and you don't have that access to those tools that you need, you're done. So it's like his rushdown is very potent, his zoning is very potent, his mix-ups are good. There's very little Zeku cannot do at a high level. It's just, can you consistently be in the spots and be in the situations where you can take advantage of it? And for most people, that's too tall of an order. So I get it if you have him lower on your list for that reason alone, because again, we've talked about highly technical characters in this game. They are hard to play, but he is one character where his results really heavily back up him being high up on the tier list.
Mm. So did you say you're 15 then?
My 15, I have 16 actually first. And 15 was Chun-Li for me. But at
Okay.
number 16, I have Laura.
Oh,
Where do you have Laura at? Do you have her in your top 10?
I guess I skipped over Laura. No, I have her in number 17. I don't know why I didn't.
Oh, well, there we go. We'll hit her now then. It's perfect.
Yes.
Laura's nasty. Maybe the worst character in the game in season 1. She bounced back extremely hard in season 2 and has fluctuated near the higher end of the rankings ever since. It seems like every region in the FGC has killer Laura players, and you badly need to lab this character to have any chance against winning against her. It's making her fireballs disappear with your crouching light kicks is very key. You've got to kind of reach under her fireballs and knock them out. But also understanding how advantaged or not she is with her various dashes, overheads, all that kind of stuff. It's so important. This is a character who's a beast even in the hands of lesser experienced players, because Laura's core mix-ups are just hard to handle. She's really good overall. But when you lab her, that's why I don't have her higher up.
Hmm.
Even though, when you see these monsters get in here and just do amazing stuff with her, she does fall apart a little bit when you really put in the time.
Laura and G are neck and neck for me. I have so she comes in at 17th, G comes in at 16th. Very similar in that they are V trigger monsters, but then their neutral outside of that is it leaves a lot to be desired, and it's somewhat easily counterable. Laura gets away with a little more because I don't think people hit her out of her fireball as much as they should, but that's
Hmm.
she's got a hitbox at her feet that you can really, or hurt box at her feet, I should say, that you can take advantage of and knock her out of that fireball. And once you start doing that, we've seen, I would say she's like wholly dependent on her V trigger, except for that we've seen Idom do some stuff with her where he plays so patiently and so thoughtfully and makes her scary outside of V trigger 2 that I have to give props, but I don't see many people doing that. I think it's really hard to do. So yeah, but in a nutshell, Laura is a V trigger monster that gives her a floor that she could never go below, and
Hmm.
then but it's really up to the player, and it's really hard to make her good outside of V trigger. It's been done, but it's so hard to do, and it's so infrequently done that's why she's number 17 for me.
Yeah, people don't knock her out of her fireball because when she does her fireball, she shakes her boobs at you, which distracts you,
Yep.
and then you forget to just hit her in her feet that are right there, and there it is. It's the animation sexiness mix up, and
My feet are down here.
yeah,
God.
exactly.
All right, who do you have next?
At number 15, I had Chun-Li, who we covered.
Okay. How about number 14?
At number 14, I had Menat, who we also covered.
Ah, well, I had Bison, and I know Bison's going to be in your top 10 because you could never
Mm,
fall out of your
yeah,
top 10, but he has
hard to,
fallen out of
yeah.
my top 10. The reason why is because I feel, well, one, everyone has a ton of Bison practice because Bison's everywhere. And the character has gotten tweaked and trimmed and nerfed throughout the years. He is now at a place where he's got the juice for sure. But I feel like I can navigate most of that juice. And hey, people aren't using the craziness of V Trigger 1 much anymore. V Trigger 2 is still really good. It's got its uses, but I feel like I can deal with it. And when a Bison hits me with it, it's usually my fault, or it's usually that they outplayed me with it, or they had the advantage and they played it correctly. But I don't see him as crazy random anymore. I see the risks that he needs to take to get close. And also everyone's labbed him so much that a lot of the stuff that he was getting away with before, it's like you just know Bison. Everyone knows Bison at this point, or you should know Bison, and because of that, he doesn't get away with as much. Pepper in V shift to get away from the things that he was the best at, which is just locking you down, and he can't do that as effectively anymore. So still really good, but that puts him out of the top 10 for me, and I put him in at number 14.
Yeah, I had him at number 9, so just right out the edge of the top 10, so not too far away from you. As you mentioned, the V-Shift thing, that was just like, thank goodness. He was one of the main characters that I wanted to see V-Shift impact, and thank goodness they got him. Oh, hated it so much, but still, in my opinion, a little too good for how little investment he takes to play. And that's kind of why I have him up here still. But, if you told me that Bison's much closer to your tier placement than mine, I'd be like, okay, sure. I get it. A lot of PTSD from this character. He has slow walk speed, which is well documented, but that does not keep him from getting to the spots on screen because he has just so mobile with all the moves that he does. And he does not have to spend a lot of resources to get to those spots. His damage is big time. His buttons are outstanding. One of the big things with his button is your opponent may be thinking of 3 or 4 different options at any given time to try to fend off Bison or do whatever. Bison's thinking about 1 or 2. So half or less of what his opponent have to do, and due to that very easy nature of what Bison offers, he tends to really kind of shoot up on this game, where maybe on paper Bison doesn't look like the most incredible character, but when you're knocking out a bunch of reads in this game, where this game is so commitment and read based, you're giving Bison a lot of advantages there. So that's why I still have him at number 9. I think he's still one of the better characters in this game. And maybe time will prove me wrong, but so far, I'm going with a good amount of history here.
There's so much wiggle room right now too. People do not know where to put most of the characters on this list, and the ranges of where you'll see certain characters, and like maybe there's a couple. It's hard. It's like there's a couple that are for sure at the very top, but even then, you see amongst like the higher level players, like Japan and Punk and IDOM and all these people, putting them all over the place. Man, it's there's a lot of division and
Yep.
in how to order tier list. So the fact that we got them within what 5 or 6 spots of each other, I don't think is too bad. So number 13, or who's your 14 was already said? Who's your number 13?
13, yeah. 13, I've got Dhalsim. Do you have him there?
12.
Somewhere around there?
12, yeah,
12?
right
Yeah,
next to you.
okay, there we go. Maybe the most consistently underrated character in the entire game, because he's traditionally had strong tournament placements throughout his time in Street Fighter V. But as we spoke about with Menat, zoners are even better now in this game. He can truly be difficult to even gain ground on for some characters in this game, and when they do, he can slip away with teleport or his air mobility, and it starts to be really difficult when you are playing against a top level Dhalsim player to feel like you have an opportunity to breach his defenses. But on the flip side of that, he's tough as hell to use. You need mastery of pretty much every button and setup he has to make him work at the highest levels of play. But I know you play against a lot of Dhalsim players too, John. Like what do you feel about this guy?
I haven't played Akita in actually a while because we haven't been playing. I've run into him like once or twice in ranked, and they've gone like 1 and 2 with my new character. So I'm coming for you, Akita. But that said, yeah, he's one of those characters where like, oh well, he made it into a top 8. Well, it's probably a one-time thing. But then it happens again, and then it happens again, and we've gotten to the point where it's like, it's clear that he has some sauce behind him. There's just no way around it. All the things you said, I agree with. I think also that this is maybe one of the best iterations of Dhalsim in terms of like the developers did a really good job, because he's one of those characters, like I always talk about like Fong, how he's kind of outside the normal, he's cut from a different cloth from the rest of the roster. And when that happens, they either going to go to the very top or the very bottom very quickly because they're playing a different game in some respects. Dhalsim fits into that, and he always kind of has. And so you usually want to give him some pretty clear weaknesses, which I think he does have. But that said, it's like it's been hard to place Dhalsim for a long time, and that he's not just matter of fact number 1. That he's sitting, a character like that sitting in this kind of area, I think is a really good look. So if we're right about this, I think Capcom did an amazing job with the character. He's got answers in so many different situations. He's got surprising offense. He's fun and interesting to watch. He's a strong character, and it's like even in his bad matchups where you'd say like, well, in a game that's so offense heavy and where rushdown is king, you'd think a character with relatively weak defense like Dhalsim, he seems like he just wants to keep it at a very far arm's length, a Dhalsim arm's length. He's still able to keep his head above water, and if that's the case, it's like it's a well designed character. I think he's strong. I think you can never count him out, and
Yeah. You've got Dhalsim players who've been playing the character since Street Fighter 2 are around there. Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, he was one of the best characters in the game. He's not as good now, but still really competitive, really viable, and hard to use. Like that is, we talked a lot about technical characters just kind of falling off the map here. He's not one of them.
Did we hit your number 12?
Number 12, not yet. I've got him, but do you want to go, or do you want to go?
For it. Yeah, because that's all my list. Dhalsim was 12 for me.
All right, I've got number 12. I got Balrog. I'm curious where you have him at.
I have him at higher than number 12, not by a ton. That's a character that people have been really, really hyping up, and he's never been bad. But he is, he can punch you real hard. He can do a lot of damage. He has ways to get in and to get to that place. He's always been a really good character. But I like Daigo's playing him now, and and Japan's given some extra attention to Balrog. So yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But why do you have him as high as you do?
Well, I have him that high because he's one of the most brain dead characters in the entire game. And it's a bit baffling why Capcom buffed this guy in the last patch. He's hard to react to. He has cookie cutter strategies and game plans, and that is the antithesis of what a top tier character should be in this game. He has terrific tools to get around zoning, where Balrog is one of the reasons how come a number of zoners just kind of fall apart in this game. Ridiculous number of frame traps, super high damage, a really strong high and low game. It's Capcom really needs to take his anti-air move and knock it down a lot, because it's just pretty much brain dead. Like, oh, I saw you jump, here's my 5 frame or like 2 frame, just knock you out of the air. And he doesn't have enough drawbacks for committing to so many offensive options. It's just like, oh, well, I'm just going to mash my head on the joystick and, probably a few good things are going to happen. As you mentioned.
Well, they have to get charge and then mash their head on the joystick.
Exactly.
I think for Balrog players, that's asking a lot.
That is. You're right. But he does have disadvantages. I'm not saying that. He just has so many strengths that are too easy for him to do consistently. And it's like, why, Capcom? Like, why did you make a character this easy to play, that good, and especially that good in those areas? Like, make him have to play some footsies. Make him not have a completely brain dead, great, amazing anti-air. Make him actually have to space that stuff out and do stuff of that nature that make him a complete character that feels like a legitimate fighting game character versus like this beta, I'm gonna win by doing whatever I want to do.
So what keeps him out of the top 10?
Because other characters are more
10?
dumb. Yeah, other characters are more dumb than that.
I have him at number 8. So
yeah.
That's where I put him. But that's it for this video, unless you had something else you wanted to say.
No, that's perfect. Balrog players are all brain dead and all stupid, and they all suck. No, I'm kidding. It's like you can definitely put skill and other stuff on this character. It's just like, I hate the way he's designed. I can't really fault the players for playing him. It's just like Capcom did a really foolish job with him, and I'm not the only player who said that over the years. It is just, he's a really, really poorly designed character in this game, and it's unfortunate.